Joining me right now is Appropriations and Banking Committee member, Alabama Senator Richard Shelby. Senator, it's good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria.
Will you vote for this bill in its current form?
Well, I would vote for it in its present form. I had advocated a straight-out repeal from the beginning and delay the repeal for a year because that way we could have worked with the Democrats and get a bipartisan solution. We're where we are today. What we're working on now is try to get 4 or 5 people to yes.
Right. You've got 10 senators basically saying, look, they can't support this bill in its current form. What's the major problem here? Is this all about the Medicaid expansion?
Part of it is, a lot of it is. Some of the conservatives that are probably reluctant to support the bill. They're concerned with the Medicaid expansion, period, and some of the moderates are concerned that it's not enough and so forth. So we're trying to work to yes. We're going to have a few more weeks to do that. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, Susan Collins said, look, we can't just do tweaks here. We need something that's closer to a repeal. That's what Senator Rand Paul said as well. So in the next 2 weeks, as we go into the July 4th holiday, then you and your colleagues come back before the August recess. What do you think could change? Do you think you're going to get this to the floor for a vote before the August recess?
I think there's a good chance, but I think what comes first is how can you get 4 or 5 people, as I said, to voting yes. And I think it's going to take some modifications to what the bill looks like today. Let's see what happens. In Washington, anything's possible and sometimes impossible.
Yeah, well, I mean, the point is you've got to get this done before you move on to tax reform. And everybody expects that tax reform will, in fact, move the needle on economic growth. So the question becomes, will you get tax reform done in 2017, sir?
I agree with you. We know that we're planning to get into the tax reform in the fall. I think it's a good time to do it. It's overdue, and I believe that we will move something. But right now, we're going to have to, Maria, focus on trying to say yes to a good bill that we're trying to put together.
And let me ask you, from your standpoint, in terms of tax reform, are there priorities that you see that sort of are a must in there? In other words, do you need to see a revenue portion, a revenue raise within a tax reform bill? Or are you comfortable with eliminating all of the deductions? What's your priority in terms of what's most important?
Well, my priority is to lift some, give some tax relief to the middle class in America. Also to lower the corporate tax rate. And if we do this, I think we're going to stimulate some growth and some spending in this country. But we've got to look at the balance, because once you cut taxes, you could have an imbalance, a big deficit, and so forth. So it's very complicated, but it's doable, and I think it's the right thing to do for the American people and our economy.
So does that mean that you are in favor of a border adjustment tax, since you're saying you've got to get revenue in there? How are you going to get revenue in there?
Well, the border adjustment tax has problems of its own. It would bring a lot of revenue in, as you just referenced, but it would also, since we're importing and exporting all the time, we have globalization. We better watch the ramifications of a border adjustment tax. It's still probably going to be debated. I doubt it will pass. All
right. Well, so you're not a fan of that then, because do you try to find revenue somewhere else is really the question.
Well,
because they were talking about that border adjustment tax raising $1 trillion in 10 years.
That would, but you also, what would it do to the economy too? Pluses and minuses everywhere we go.
Let me ask you about the banking sector. Obviously, you've done so much work in terms of regulatory reform. Banks passed the first round of the Federal Reserve's annual stress test this week. The Fed is going to release the second round of test results today. As a member of the Banking Committee, what do you believe the president's proposal to roll back regulations will mean for the industry? And how important are these stress tests and this new environment around the banks? How would you characterize the sector?
Well, I think we've probably given too many stress tests and not enough regulatory relief. You can't treat all banks the same. The regional banks, smaller banks are in a lot of ways being treated like some of the biggest sector banks that we have. I think that right now the administration, thank God, is looking at regulatory relief, something we've advocated for a long time. I think that would help move the economy too, because there's a cost to regulation big time.
Let me ask you about this new movement to change the makeup of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. What's your take on these government-sponsored entities, and how should they look different?
That's a difficult choice. It's a difficult job. I've tried it before, and I wish Senator Corker and Warner well. The breakup, we got to look at it, what it would do. They're talking about breaking up parts of it, and there's some proprietary issues there too. But whatever we can do to privatize it, get it out of the government hands, where we won't have to bail it out again, I think we'll be better off.
Well, in terms of the regulatory environment, what else do you need to see change? This is probably one area that the president and this administration has had real success on in terms of rolling back regulations around Dodd-Frank and other financial services regulations.
Well, Dodd-Frank, I thought, was a nightmare for a lot of the financial institutions and for the American people. It put a lot of cost on people. I think we need regulation, but we need smart regulation. We need certain regulation, not a lot of ambiguity. Dodd-Frank brought a lot of ambiguity and a lot of regulation and a lot of cost.
Yeah, so you want that to continue to change then?
Absolutely, Maria.
Yeah. What do you think your biggest priority will be this year, 2017, in terms of legislation, Senator?
Well, my goal would be in the Senate, bona fide, meaningful, substantive tax relief. We need it badly.
All right, we'll be watching. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Senator Richard Shelby joining us there. Coming up, Toyota takes